Welcome to the Energy Exchange. I am Alane Paulley, and joining me today is Cecil, the co-founder and master blender at Pursuit Spirits. We are going to talk all about Ryan's journey and creating your own bourbon line.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
So first of all, you are the podcast expert.
I don't know about expert, but we've been doing it for 10 years now. So yeah, it's pretty wild to think we've been doing it that long.
Okay, so 10 years. So tell me a little bit about how you went from, I'm going to talk about bourbon, have the podcast, to creating your own bourbon line.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story and not something, there was no 10-year plan or nothing like that. But I owned another company here in Louisville called Go Green Lawn Solutions, lawn care, fertilization. So I was in my truck a lot listening to podcasts, loved like Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan. And I was like, wow, I love the podcast space. Winters were obviously slow. I grew up in Bardstown, Kentucky, and I had this idea. This was in 2014, 2015 timeframe. And I had this idea like, wow, there's not very many like influencers or media outlets for bourbon brands to connect with consumers. And I saw the power of social media, podcasting, and how it could help brands connect their story to consumers. And growing up in Bardstown, I was surrounded by the bourbon industry my entire life. And quite frankly, no one really cared about bourbon my entire life until recently. But I saw a newer, younger generation. I'm 40 now. I'm aging faster than the whiskey. But I just kind of saw at the time I was 30 and saw my friends, people from different parts of the country, really getting enthralled with bourbon, to learn more about it. So we started in my basement with my co-host, Kenny Coleman. We later joined with Fred Minnick. He's a whiskey writer, but we literally just started in our basement talking about bourbon, then went around the state kind of interviewing industry experts. We knew that we weren't the experts. We were just two dummies in front of a microphone, but we wanted to really bring on master distillers, master blenders, marketing people, so consumers could really understand what that bottle of bourbon meant on the shelf. Because you go to a shelf and you're like, what the hell is all this stuff? And it can be confusing. You're like, small batch or single barrel, like what are all these terms mean?
What do I care about?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that makes the big
what makes the difference, and what's quality versus marketing and whatnot. So we really just gave this outlet, and fast forward today, we're the world's largest whiskey podcast.
Wow.
And had no idea we'd be there. We got a couple 100,000 followers on TikTok, Instagram. And so we kind of became like the trusted like influencer in the space. Because of that, distilleries started partnering with us to do single barrel picks. So we would go to, say, Maker's Mark or Jim Beam, Knob Creek, and pick single barrels for them and sell them to our fans. And some of them would sell out literally within like 30 minutes. And so this guy gave us this call, and sorry if I'm rambling here, but this guy gave us this call, and he's like, why the hell are you all making all this money for other distilleries? You all have this passionate following, passionate fan base. You all need to start a brand. And we're like, well, never thought about that. So tell me more. How can we learn? And we kind of took all this industry knowledge we learned from the experts and all the connections, and we set out to start our own brand.
Okay, so you didn't take the conventional path to starting a bourbon brand. And from what I understand, you use multiple sources.
Correct.
To create. So tell me about that, because you didn't just partner with one bourbon company. Why did you do that? How does that work? What do you think that brings? Yeah,
sure. So for those that aren't like whiskey nerds, we consider ourselves whiskey nerds. We want to understand like where it's made, who's made it, what the mash bill is. And so when we were researching this, there's a lot of brands, they call it sourcing whiskey. And that means there's a distillery that makes extra whiskey of their mash bills, and then brands like ours, we're called non-distilling producers. We can go buy those barrels and then put them in a bottle. Probably half of the brands you see on the shelf, they don't actually make it. They source it from a distillery. And so we were looking, and a lot of great brands have built that way, because starting a distillery is so capital intensive, expensive, and you're waiting 6, 8, 10 years before you can recoup your investment. So it makes sense to like buy really good whiskey from other distilleries that have been producing it and they have extra of it. And
can I ask one question about that? So you take the bourbon barrel, and correct me if I'm wrong, you go through some sort of liquor store or something that actually bottles it for you?
Well, you buy barrels from these distilleries, and then you would take them to like a processing facility where you actually blend them, dump them together, and then bottle them. And so that was kind of that was really kind of the market when we entered. It's like these companies were buying barrels, putting them into packaging, making up a story, not making up story, but creating their own story about the brand. And we looked at it and we were like, well, we don't want to be a marketing company. We want to be a whiskey company. And we want to have something unique to us. And so because of the podcast and all the relationships we dealt with, we were tasting whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, but all over the country. And there's a lot of these producers that were making really fantastic flavor profiles that you just weren't getting out of Kentucky bourbons. And so we thought, well, wouldn't this be cool if we partner with multiple distilleries in different states and really focus on the art of blending these different mash bills? So most products you see on the shelf, you have like a single barrel, okay, like Blanton's single barrels, all the craze because it's got a fancy, horse on the top, beautiful bottle. But consumers really understand that single barrel is one barrel that was made by that distillery. Where two, you have a small batch product. That's what most of the products on the shelf are. And so most small batches are one mash bill that's been made, aged in a warehouse, and they blend as small as 2 barrels together or thousands of barrels together. So when we were creating our product, we were like, well, wouldn't it be cool if you blend different mash bills, different distilleries, and really create something interesting, unique to us? And so we set on this path. We obviously wanted Kentucky bourbon because we're Kentucky boys. So we partnered with Bardstown Bourbon Company to make our Kentucky bourbon with us. And we're very transparent about who makes our whiskey for us because a lot of times these non-distilling producers aren't transparent about where they're getting the whiskey from. And to the distilleries that sell it to them don't want to know that, oh, Heaven Hill made this product or Jim Beam made this product or MGP. But we wanted to create partnerships where we could be very transparent about where our whiskey's coming from.
That's good.
So we started with Kentucky, then we found this amazing distillery in Tennessee called Tennessee Distilling Group. We started blending those two together. We're like, well, this is really interesting and fun. But we found this really unique craft distillery up in New York, Finger Lakes area, and they were making an incredible wheated bourbon. And we put that in and we're like, wow, this is really cool. And then what do we call it? And we had the podcast was called Bourbon Pursuit because we were kind of on the pursuit of knowledge and finding the next best whiskey. And so we knew we wanted to name it Pursuit, but we're like, what do we call our product? So we landed on the term United because we are uniting those different mash bills from different distilleries and to create these really interesting and unique flavor profiles.
Okay.
I know it's a lot. But
so are you saying that each bottle, so you get from the 3 different distilleries, you mix them together and you create something unique. So each run of the bottling can be a little bit different? Correct,
yes. So most of our small batch, which we have here today, is comprised of 10 barrels coming from those different distilleries. We produce 1,200 barrels a year divided amongst our 4 partner distilleries. And then as our master blender, once a year I taste through all of our barrels that are our youngest whiskey that's in the barrel is 4 years. Our oldest is 8 years. And so I taste through all these barrels. I'm kind of a guidance counselor. And I say, okay, you're the flavor profile. You've hit the maturity level. I think that will create an interesting, good whiskey. When we'll ship those barrels to Kentucky at our facility, then I will start piecing the layers together. So yes, each bottle, while we use the same components, each one can be slightly different based on what I'm tasting and what flavor profiles I'm trying to create.
So they're truly unique.
Correct, yes. Now, I'm trying to create some consistency so like, oh, I really like that bottle of Pursuit United, but I don't want to deviate from batch to batch. So you're like, oh, I really like that batch, but that batch was just way too like oaky or too.
It's got the same stability throughout, like the same currents, but there could be changes in each one.
Correct. And most consumers, they don't really like sit there and nitpick a whiskey down. They're not looking for, oh, does this one have more cherry or more tobacco or more? But whiskey nerds do. So it's fun. We wanted to create a product that was approachable to an average consumer that's just looking for a cool bourbon that tastes good, is priced good, looks good on your bar. But we also want to appeal to whiskey geeks. So we have that cool variation for those folks.
But I think it's really great if you were to get a bottle of this, open it at your home bar, and you love it. That bottle, and it becomes something that you look forward to sharing with your friends. And it's kind of maybe that actual bottle to you is special, like that to you is like your favorite one. That's something that you want to share with people. You want to get out and it becomes a little bit of a different experience and a more special experience when you share it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like on our packaging, we were intentional about that. So each package on the side, we have a batch code that has a code that tells you exactly when the batch was made and the year it was made. So if you were like, oh gosh, I just love that batch, then because like some of our fans will be like, oh, I have that batch. I want to go find that existing or that one. Where can I find it and whatnot? So it makes it a fun, interesting, and unique product.
So about 6 years ago, my dad was, he likes bourbon, he likes scotch, I sent him and we had a lottery within the company. We pulled anybody who wanted to go. They put their name in a hat. We pulled the names out, ended up all being men. We bussed them to this distillery. I don't remember which one. They did 40 tastings. They tasted 40 barrels.
Yeah.
They ended up picking number 3 that they tasted.
Yeah.
They all agreed it was the best. We bought it. We bottled it. We gave it away for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I have 2 bottles left. And I have everybody we gave it to was like, that was such a good bottle. And I can't remember the brand, but I see where there must be something about each batch, each barrel that's unique.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So what that is a single barrel selection. And so while you can have the same mash bill that was produced, made on the same day, set right next to each other in a rick house. So these barrels are stored in these massive warehouses called ricks, where the barrels are rolled in there, sit next to each other. And it's fascinating. Like we can taste through our barrels and I'll taste through 10 of them and they were all made the same day, stored in the same place. And one's like really fruity, one's really oaky, one's more spicy, one's more grainy and young. And so why bourbon I think is this really amazing product is because there's so many levers being pulled for flavor. So the biggest thing is the actual interaction with the oak. So 80%, some say 60 to 80% of the flavor comes from the oak. So like you can have the same mash bills sitting next to each other, but this barrel that's right here that tastes oaky could have had 200-year-old oak staves made into it, or it could have 40-year-old oak staves. The oak could have come from Missouri, it could have came from Kentucky, it could have came from Tennessee, West Virginia. And so there's all these, you have different trees, different char levels. Also too, like if a barrel's sitting on the outside of a rick house, closer to the wall, it's getting more heat. Or if it's in the middle, it's not getting as much heat, it's more stagnant. And so all those different variables create different barrels for whiskey. Now, as you blend more and more barrels together, you will blend out those inconsistencies. And that's why like someone like Maker's Mark or Old Forester, Woodford, big brands that they're literally batching 500,000, 2,000 barrels together, they can pretty much wipe out all those inconsistencies. But for us as a small producer doing only 10 barrels at a time, one barrel can like ruin a batch. And so it's very important that we take this craft of tasting and blending to really create exceptional products.
Okay, so now we're going to do the bourbon or whiskey for dummies questions.
Okay, perfect. I'm a dummy, so that's great. Sorry,
okay, well, I definitely am, especially on this subject. So when you were talking about your story, you used the word bourbon and whiskey interchangeably.
Sure.
And so I know that it has something to do like champagne has to be made in the Champagne region. And I don't know if somebody polices that or about
there
bourbon.
Is, yeah.
So could you explain to me what that is about?
Yeah, so there's the TTB, which is like the tobacco some barrel. But anyways, there is a definition for bourbon. So it's in simplest terms, there's the ABCs of bourbon. So it has to be made in America. So A, it doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. A lot of people say, oh, it's not bourbon if it's not made in Kentucky. That's not true. It can be made anywhere in the U.S. B is the barrel. So it has to be in a new charred oak barrel. It cannot go into a used barrel. So it has to be in virgin oak that's been charred. And then C is corn. It has to be a mash bill of 51% corn. And a mash bill is just your recipe. So most mash bills are like 70% corn, 20% rye or wheat, and then 10% malted barley. And so it can be any of those.
They cook that in a big pot.
Yes, correct. Okay. Yeah, they grind up all the grains, put them in a big fermentation tank, let it ferment, let the yeast break down the sugars to convert them into alcohol. and then they take that beer or alcohol and they run it through a still, which really ramps up the alcohol level. So you'll have a beer that's somewhere between 5 and 10% alcohol. Then you run it through a still, usually 2 or 3 times. And then on the other side, it comes out at 100. So to be a bourbon, it has to be 125 proof entry into the barrel or lower. But all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbon. So if it doesn't hit those 3 criteria we talked about, then it's a whiskey. So whiskey can be Scotch, it can be Irish whiskey. They have their own definitions. There's American whiskeys. And so like you can take those same ingredients that you made a bourbon, but say you don't put it in a new charred oak barrel, it's no longer a bourbon, it's a whiskey, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you see on the shelf, a lot of times there's a category called light whiskey, and people see like, oh, there's an 18-year bourbon, but it's not. It's whiskey. And because they put it into a used barrel, and it takes 15, 18 years to taste good because it's put into a used barrel that's already been used previously.
Okay, so all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon?
Correct, yes.
Okay, great. All right, good to know. So, and what is it when you're tasting, like you're the selector, you are magic taste buds.
That's right.
And you know what is good. And you spent 10 years on this podcast. You've been tasting all this bourbon. Obviously, the people who are involved in this venture with you trust you enough to make really good decisions. So let's say that, let's go into your brain a little bit. When you are tasting a barrel or a bourbon, what do you taste for?
Yeah, so predominantly I break them down into 4 categories. So I'm looking for sweet barrels because the reason people love bourbon and Americans love sweet shit. You know, we have a sweet tooth as Americans. We love
sweet shit.
And that's why bourbon's popular. So you love sweet. So you're looking for those really rich caramels, vanillas, brown sugars. That's kind of my base one. My base 2 is I'm looking for fruit. So I love fruit in my whiskey. So I love like citrus. So I'm looking for like orange peel or lemon or strawberries, raspberries, kind of bright fruitiness. And that's coming from like the rye in whiskey or in our bourbons. And then the two other flavors I'm looking for are oak and spice. And so I look for sweet and fruity barrels. Those are kind of like my protein. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's my brisket or my chicken breast. And then my oak and my spicy barrels are kind of my seasonings, because oak and spice a little will go a long way. So really want it to be sweet, fruity, but I want subtle hints of oak and spice on the finish. And you mix
those, so you find those barrels that meet those definitions, and then you do the mix.
Exactly.
Have you ever mixed it and been like, that's all right?
Yes, all the time.
So how does that work? What happens?
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll do trial blends, and we'll start out with 100 or 200 ml samples. So I'll get samples from, say, 50 different barrels. And then I'll go into my lab and just start pouring 10 milliliters out of each barrel. And in my head, I'm like, all right, well, I know it needs this many sweet barrels to this many fruit barrels, this and that. And I put it in a beaker, mix it up, taste it. And I'm like, well, that sucked. Like, you know, and so, I just find like, okay, well, that one's maybe just a little too earthy or a little too musty, or it's just a little too bright, a little too young, or it's too spicy. And so I'll go back and I'm like, well, I think it needs a little bit more sweet or fruitiness. And so I'll go back and I'll like look at my data, my spreadsheet where I keep a lot of data and tasting notes on each barrel. And I'll be like, let me pull those sweet and fruity barrels to kind of balance out some of those. Or if it's too oaky, I'm like, let's leave that one out, find one that's not so bold, not so tannic. And so it's a ton of trial and error. And ironically, that's the name of our cocktail bar downstairs, Trial and Error, because that's our process with blending. You know, you have kind of something in your head and a baseline to start, but it doesn't always work out that way. So it's just constantly tinkering and tasting.
Okay, so how drunk are you when you leave work?
Well, not at all, because I'd spit everything out.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
So I do schedule my tastings on Monday and Tuesday mornings. I'll only have 2 over easy eggs, no seasoning, and maybe like a little espresso or green tea. And then I'll start tasting from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And I limit myself to about 10 barrel samples a day, because not only, even when you're spitting, there's still some alcohol seeping into your body.
Yeah.
But 2, your palate just starts to get numb, fatigue, because these are all at cask strength, which means they haven't been proofed down with water. So sometimes the proof is 102 proof, sometimes it's 135 proof. And so your palate gets kind of fatigued by the alcohol and really starts to become numb to flavors.
Yeah.
And so I really try to limit it to like 10 to 15 samples at a time.
Okay, first of all, it's really admirable about how serious you take this.
Yes.
Because you talked about spreadsheet, just like every good business owner.
Yep.
But the way that you're going into the detail and how you're doing it, I can feel and see how much you care.
I do. It's a passion of mine. I've learned from some of the brightest minds in the industry. Her name's Nancy Fraley. Most people don't know who she is, but she was a master taster and blender in France. She worked with cognac and Armagnacs and really and came to the States and really consulted for probably over 200 brands to be their master blender and pick barrels. So I've learned a ton of stuff from her, but just working with the major distilleries and the master tasters and blenders from anywhere from Heaven Hill to Brown-Forman, Beam, Willett Distillery, I've picked up and learned knowledge and how passionate they are. Because in bourbon, a lot of marketing has been like, oh, you distill it, you make it, that makes it good. Everybody's like, well, I drink Buffalo Trace because their distillery is the best. And it's like, but what you don't realize, the people behind the scenes, the master tasters, the master blenders are tasting these barrels and picking, as we talked about before, each barrel can be completely different. So you have these quality control panels that are behind the scenes, tasting these barrels, putting these products together that you end up on the shelf. So to me, it's like the most important part in American whiskey.
Wow.
And I want to be a good steward of it. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And two, I want our products to sell. And we know as a new brand, a lot of times our first interaction with a customer is their first interaction. We don't want to mess that up. So we want to make sure when they get a bottle of ours, they have an exceptional experience.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about business. I'm a business owner. You're obviously a business owner.
Yes.
So you know, obviously you found something you're passionate about. That's half the battle. You guys are going forward. How are sales? How is it going? What's the process like there?
Yeah, really good. We're fortunate. We've been behind the scenes doing the brand since 2018. And so when we first started, we bought 3 barrels to start. And then we sold those 3, bought 6, and then bought those 6, and so on, snowballed it. And to where now we're making 1,200 barrels a year. And so this is my 3rd startup, and this one is the hardest and most pain in the ass business because with bourbon, you have to make decisions now that affect you 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now, and 10 years from now. And if you don't make the right decisions for 10 years from now you have to reap those decisions later.
It sounds a lot like manufacturing. Keep going.
Yeah. And so with that too, you're tying up a ton of capital. So we have great finance partners with our local bank down in Bardstown that's helped us finance a lot of our new make purchases so we can kind of create a 10-year roadmap of like, this is how many barrels we want to sell this year, but this is how many barrels we want to sell in 2030. And so you have to make these decisions or even up to 2040. And so you're making decisions now based on the future because bourbon's not really a good sellable product until it hits most of the time 6 years old. And so that's the most challenging part about this business. And two, you have an industry that saw extreme growth from from 2010 to 2020 during the pandemic years. It was crazy. Everybody was getting into bourbon. And now you kind of see a little pullback from spirits because everybody was drinking like crazy during the pandemic. And so it's created a real challenging market environment, especially for small brands like us. Because like any other business, you have a product you sell, you go find the customers, you do the sales. Well, with us, we have to go through the 3-tiered distribution model, which was created as a government structure after Prohibition. So we have to sell to distributor, then the distributors sell to liquor stores. Well, during 2020 through 2022, it was no problem. Okay, distributors, bourbon selling like crazy, they will bring it on. Liquor stores will bring it on. With that, they brought in a ton of other brands and other products, even from the big distilleries, and they have excess inventory. And so while even your brand's doing well, they'll be like, well, I got to sell all this other brand stuff before I can bring in newer brands. And so it's created this really challenging environment. But because we're small, we've adapted. We create a really awesome direct consumer model. So I've been a huge fan of Napa Wine Country and Sonoma. Went out there several times, and I was meeting these small mom and pop wineries like, and they're just selling direct to consumer or out of their gift shop, and they have great businesses. And so shipping laws have come more laxed with alcohol in the U.S. And while Kentucky doesn't embody this, we're only allowed to ship to 6 states. Our partner in Washington, D.C., they can ship to about 40 different states. And with the national presence we have of the podcast, we can meet the consumers that we want to, whereas most brands, they do a spray and pray model. You go and get distribution. The distributor puts it at whatever retail store you want, and you hope that customers buy it, where we can intentionally find our consumers. And we also built a downtown tasting room here in Main Street in Louisville in August, where we do tours and tastings, and we have a really cool cocktail bar. It serves all our bourbons. And so we're trying to find interesting and unique ways to connect with consumers. And we also use social media. Like, that's how we grew as a podcast and as a brand, whereas a lot of alcohol brands kind of miss that. They kind of do the same thing. They have this like really lifestyle footage of a fancy bottle and a leather chair, and and it's like consumers are like, oh, that's boring. Whereas we've kind of taken a more fun approach. And as you can see, I'm wearing a hoodie and joggers. That's who we are as a company. We're more of that laid back, more approachable bourbon brand that consumers, especially younger consumers who aren't brand loyal to, the old legacy distilleries that have great history and great stories. We don't have that. So we're trying to connect consumers in modern, interesting ways. But business has been great with us. We're up almost 100% this year.
Wow.
And going into next year, we have to double our sales because we have a lot of barrels that'll be in that 6-year range, and so we have to go create those sales. But we've been really small, organic, and really building this brand up for the last 6 years to where we can really start to expand into new states and different markets moving into 2026.
So, are you going to get? You said you have 1,200 barrels. Are you going to stay at this like smaller 1,200 barrels, or are you planning to buy 2,400 barrels and 34? Like, what are we looking at there?
Yeah. So right now we currently have 5,000 barrels in inventory. So we're producing 1,200 barrels a year to create that runway so that we can slowly increase sales year over year. Right now, we're like, that's as much debt as we're as comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so if the brand gets to give you a number, we want to be a 50,000 case brand. We did 10,000 cases this calendar year. That in cases, 6-pack bottles for us.
Okay.
And so we knew that we could probably, Kenny and I could manage a small team and get to 50,000 cases nationwide with some international distribution. To get beyond that, because this business is so complex, there's a lot of government, intervention with taxes and paperwork. Each state, you have to file different taxes, pay different taxes. You have to file different reports every month for each state. There's just so much complexity in this business that you don't normally have to deal with. And to get past that 50,000 case brand, that might have to be someone else's problem if we want the brand to continue to grow.
Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about your storefronts because I'm interested in that and how that came about, and your bars. But one of the things that we did today, we combined my business and your business.
Yes.
So there was a time I manufacture pulsed electromagnetic frequency machines.
Okay, cool.
So it puts a pulse and electromagnetic field into the body or into whatever you are magnawaving. That's the name of the company. And it helps with oxygenation and inflammation reduction. Several years ago, my mom and dad and a sommelier started magnawaving wine. Okay, yeah. And they noticed a change in the wine based on how that went.
Sure.
So what we've been doing while you and I have been talking, my team has been magnawaving one of the glasses of bourbon.
Oh, interesting.
So we have 2 glasses of bourbon, and we want you to taste both of them. And I just want to know if you taste a difference and if we know which one it is.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, okay. Oxygen. Oh, yeah, go ahead and bring them over. So I'll keep them left and right. Hopefully you remember which ones they are. But yeah, oxygen is very important in the flavor. It's funny, actually, we have what we call the bourbon jacuzzi. And so I've had this stainless steel air nozzle made so that after we do a blend, I will bourbon jacuzzi it for about an hour to inject oxygen in it. Because it kind of rounds out the flavors, mellows out some of the tannins, some of the spice. And so oxygen is a very important part of the the flavor components.
I actually, several years ago, this wine distillery wanted to create an entire thing to do it with their wine.
Yeah, that's cool. Interesting.
Do they smell
I can
different?
tell on the nose, this one on the left has a little bit more aroma to it. Just on the nose, we'll taste it. Okay. Sorry, I'm sure people are thrilled at me sitting here nosing and
Who
tasting
cares?
bourbon.
I'm
Yeah.
thrilled.
Oh, wow. There's a difference. Yeah. So this one on the right's a little more, I'd say, more spice, more intense. The one on the left's a little bit more mellow, more fruity, a little bit more sweeter on the side. But yeah, there's some differences here. Yeah, this one on the left is much more mellow, much smoother. It's getting more butterscotchy caramel. The one on the right has a little bit more intense oak and spice on it. That's interesting.
Okay, which one is which?
The right was Magna Waved. The left, right. Wait, let me see. This one's Magna Waved.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a circle. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, or sorry, that one was Magna Waved. Sorry.
Yeah. With this one, to be honest, as a taster, I preferred the one on the right because it had more intense flavors. This one was a little more mellowed out.
Yeah.
And so this kind of like made it more vibrant, more punchier, more like fruity, more spicy, which as a whiskey fan, I really enjoyed. So I was going to say the one on the right was my preferred one, but this was our control, which is the one in a bottle is like much more mellower and smoother, but I really like this one. That's
Okay,
fine.
so now we'll have to get you a machine so that you can
Yes.
do this because it is
You put
something.
that on layaway?
Yeah, no, we
Yeah,
somebody in the
I know.
business.
Yeah.
We can help you with that. But I think the thing about it is that it was an avenue I almost went after for a while of like going after alcohol and talking to people about how it can really make a change. But
That's interesting. Yeah, because people in this industry have always tried to figure out how do you rapid age or like make whiskey taste better at a shorter age because you're stuck on that capital for 6 years. And so they've done everything from sonic waves to noise vibration to putting them on boats,
they
put
haven't
them in the
tried pulse
trough.
electromagnetic fields.
But they haven't tried pulse magnetic fields, so that's interesting. Yeah, it's a much more vibrant spirit after going
All right,
to
so
that.
we can go in on a bottle and we'll try it and magnawave it and sell it to the consumers.
That's right.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, or we
Okay.
could do a whole barrel that way, see what it tastes like.
Oh my gosh, if we
Yeah.
did the barrel.
Yeah, I'm all about experimentation, and as a blender, I'm not. A lot of whiskey's stuck on tradition, and as long as we stay in those three levers that we talked about, ABCs of bourbon, I'm cool with it. But there's all this whole other world. If I'm more interested in finding like interesting ways to create flavor, whether that's through wood or oxygen or water or now magnetic waves, and so very interesting. That's cool.
Okay, cool. I'm so glad that you did that because it is very interesting to me how that works. Because
Yeah.
I we could probably get a researcher to figure it out, but it does. Somehow it oxygenates.
We can put it through a GCMS test, and I'm sure they could pick up what different elements or flavor compounds are being pulled out of it and whatnot. So
Okay, we're doing that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after the.
Yeah.
That's happening. Okay, so tell me a little bit about you decided to go from podcast to selling bourbon. Now you have restaurants.
not a
or
restaurant
bars,
bar. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that progression and where people can go if they want to visit.
Yeah, sure. So as we talked about, we do have a visitor center on Main Street, 722 West Main. We're right in between 21C Hotel, which is the big golden David statue,
Yeah.
and then the other big statue in Louisville, which is the big baseball bat. So we're sandwiched right in between those.
It's a good spot to
It's
be
a
in.
great location. We have great partners like Bardstown Bourbon Company, Green River, right next door to us. Michter's is right across the street. Then you have Evan Williams, Buzz Roost, and then the whole Whiskey Row. But 3 years ago when we were building the brand or, trying to build the brand, we just saw we were getting 15 emails a week about, I'm coming on the Bourbon Trail. I want to go. Where do I go? Like, tell me where to go. And then I look at Kenny and I'm like, maybe somebody would want to come see us. We have a pretty big fans. We have a whiskey brand now. And so too, with the challenges I talked about in the 3-tier distribution with retailers and distributors, we knew that a ton of people were already coming to Kentucky, especially downtown Louisville. And we knew we had to have a spot there that people could come. They're already coming to see other brands, that they could come see our brands. But if they're not familiar with us, they're likely to stop in just to check it out because of the location. And so we offered guided tours, guided tastings.
Wow.
And then 2, we have a really cool, awesome cocktail bar called Trial and Error downstairs. And it's not just a bourbon bar. We had looked at the visitor centers of every other bourbon company, and they're all great, but they're all a little focused on the brand specifically. And then we wanted a bar that not only could appeal to bourbon fans, but we also wanted anybody. So we have great tequila cocktails, mezcal, gin, vodkas. We have beer, champagne, wine. Obviously, the only bourbon that we serve is ours.
Yeah.
But if if your significant other or whoever you're coming with is like, I just can't do bourbon, we'll try to convince you to try it in a creative cocktail that will, like, we have a great bourbon espresso martini that it's like our number 1 seller by far. Because most people, espresso martini's hot and they're like, oh, I love espresso martini. And we're like, well, try it with our bourbon. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is it has so much more flavor than what I'm used to with a vodka espresso martini. And so we're trying to expose people to bourbon in creative ways. But also, if they're not into it and they don't want to be into it, we have other drinks for them. So we opened in August. It's been great. We've had over 10,000 customers come through our doors since we launched in August. So for only 3 months, it's been absolutely great. And then now that we're in the holiday season, we have a great pop-up bar called The Lodge at Trial and Error. So we have great holiday decor. We turn it into a ski lodge, so it feels like you're in like a Montana or a Switzerland kind of ski lodge. So there's old vintage ski signs and ski gear. And then 2, the cocktail menu is based around all these holiday drinks. So we were talking earlier, like we have one called Kevin, from Home Alone, and it's a bourbon infused hot chocolate, and it's absolutely incredible. But we just have a lot of fun, and we change our cocktails seasonally. So we're creating interesting and unique flavor profiles. But we also have this really intimate, like loungy space where people can come and just have conversations and really just enjoy time with their friends, family, or whoever they're traveling with. So we wanted to create like the best cocktail bar in Louisville and not just a bourbon bar.
And that's a great way to get people in and interested. Because when you go to like a tasting room, my opinion, if I was going to go down and go to a distillery, I would think the whole thing is just going to be their bourbon.
Yep.
I'm going to not be, my husband's going to enjoy it. I might not enjoy it as much.
Exactly. Yeah.
But with this, it's a great way to go and get introduced to your products without actually having to make that decision that I'm just drinking bourbon the entire time.
Totally. We have a lot of spouses. The guys or girls will be upstairs, and then the husbands or wives will be downstairs at the cocktail bar enjoying a cocktail while they wait on, whoever's with them upstairs. So it's fun.
Okay, so now I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a bourbon connoisseur, but what should I be looking for in the taste?
Yeah, sure. So with all of our whiskeys, as I talked about, initially on the front palate, you're going to get a lot of sweetness. So you're looking for those brown sugars, those caramels, those vanillas, kind of creme brulee type flavor profiles. And then through the mid palate, you'll kind of notice some orange marmalade, some citrus, some like herbal tea notes. And then on the back, that's where you get that, they call it the Kentucky hug, which is like that spice, the oak, the finish. And so a perfect whiskey for me is sweet, fruity, and spicy. And so as you take a sip, you'll kind of hopefully notice those flavors and not just the alcohol.
So you smelled it first, and then you kind of did the wine thing where you like.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you do that every time?
I do, yeah, because your nose is your sensory factory. That's where all the flavor starts. And so you try to smell it, get used to it, get the flavors that you notice. And people are like, how do you come with these crazy tasting notes? And like, how do you extract? And so a lot of the master blenders, tasters, they really just taught me to be present whenever I'm eating or drinking, or say I'm at a farmer's market and I'm like smelling a raw peach or a fresh peach, or like you go to a hayride and you smell like fresh cut grass or fresh hay or earthy kind of flavors. And I'm always constantly being present and trying to smell aromas, taste aromas, put them in my memory bank. But bourbons too, because of the corn base, there's a lot of sweetness, and a lot of cereals are made out of corn or wheat or this or that. So you'll get a lot of cereal flavors too. So a lot of times I'm like, oh, that tastes like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or, honeycombs, or Honey Nut Cheerios, or Count Chocolate, you name it.
Yeah.
And so it's whatever you're tasting. There's no right or wrong answer. And sometimes tasting notes are more marketing than anything. And they're like, they talk about, oh, it tastes like lavender in a field in Holland or something. And you're like, well, that's just BS. But
or the oaky afterbirth, like they said on The Office.
Yeah,
Michael Scott was like, oh, it's got an oaky afterbirth.
Yeah. And so people get hung up on tasting notes, and they think they have to have the right. And they're like, oh, well, if you're tasting that, then I'm not. And everybody's palate's different too. It matters what you ate before. So like if you had, spicy Mexican food for lunch, and then you come in and drink bourbon, you're like, well, damn, this stuff's spicy. It's harsh. But if you just had something like pulled pork or a protein, like the whiskey's going to taste more buttery and soft. And so that's why as a taster, I try to limit like having wild flavor varieties and keep it basic to where I'm just having eggs or crackers or something like just protein based with not a ton of seasoning, because all those little things can impact how your taste buds interact with the whiskey.
I mean, it was really good. It's very good.
Well, thank you. This is our United Triple Mash Bourbon. It's a mash made up of 3 different mash bills. This particular expression's won double gold at San Francisco twice. And so
wow.
San Francisco is like kind of the creme de la creme of awards. And so to finish in a double gold, you're in the top 5% of the bourbons that were presented. And typically on an average year, there's probably about 500 to 600 bourbons submitted to this competition. And so for us, being only around 2018, to win double golds at San Francisco, like we're competing against the Eagle Rares of the world, the Woodfords, the Heaven Hills, the Wellers, all the brands that everybody's accustomed to and chasing after. But and the only reason we can get there is, we think, is through the art of blending and that intentional tasting and putting these really flavorful expressions to our consumers.
This is amazing. So tell me, is there a blend or any mash bills that you have right now that you're excited about? Is there any that are coming out that are, that got you that are more exciting?
Yeah, so we're always pushing the boundaries of flavor, and we're looking at different woods and different casks to see what works well with our whiskey, what helps our whiskey, or what I guess adds to the whiskey, not takes away from it. So we just came out with a couple really interesting, unique releases this year. We did one in Mizunara oak, which is a Japanese oak. So Mizunara has to be aged for 200 years. It's this really windy, corky. It's a tree that grows around water, but it provides like this really rich cola, ginger, cinnamon, sandalwood flavor profiles. That was a really fun one. We've looked at, you speak of wineries or talking about sommeliers. I'm a huge wine fan, and winemaking's been around for thousands of years, whereas distilling's been around for 300 or 400 years, maybe even before that. But American whiskey's only been around 200 years, and so I've been to Spain and Italy, Napa, and I'm trying to learn from different winemakers about their process. And so we've taken some of their methods and aging barrels, and we got some barrels that we're going to be coming out with that are just absolutely phenomenal. We partner with this cooperage called Seguin Moreau. They're based out of Napa, but they do a lot of wine cooperage for a lot of vineyards across the world. And so we put our whiskeys in those and custom toast and charred the barrels. And the whiskey that's been in there for 18 months now is absolutely just gorgeous. And I'm really stoked about that for next year. Okay. So you've got a lot of fun things happening. We do. So like I said, we're always because a lot of times people will do a guided tasting or this and that. And they're like, what do you think of this batch? And I'm like, well, I haven't tasted that one because I was working on that 18 months ago. I'm working on what's coming out 18 months from now. So
that's your focus.
Exactly. So I'm constantly looking at the future, creating new releases, because everything in this business takes time. Okay, so we're going to play a game for a second. Oh, fun. All right, so this is this or that, but it's the bourbon whiskey edition. Okay. So single distillery or multi-distillery collaboration? This or that? The second one. Yeah, multi-distillery. Okay, traditional mash bill or experimental mash bill? Experimental. Okay, classical barrel char or custom level char? Custom level char.
age-driven flavor or blend-driven flavor?
Blend-driven flavor.
Oh, this is great. Okay. All right, let's do food and flavor. Oh, no, we'll stay with this. We'll stay with bourbon. Sweet caramel notes. I think I already know the answer to this. Or spicy rye notes.
Ooh, for me, spicy rye notes.
Okay. Oak forward or fruit forward?
Fruit forward.
High proof or balanced proof?
Balanced proof.
Long finish or bold mid palate?
Ooh, long finish for me.
Okay, good. So the bourbon people know, since you're the taster, they now learned something. All right, let's talk about food. Sweet or salty?
Ooh, salty.
Tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Spicy heat or mild and flavorful?
Ooh, spicy heat.
Breakfast all day or dessert first?
Breakfast all day.
Sushi night or burger night?
Sushi night.
Chips and dip or charcuterie board?
Ooh, charcuterie board.
Okay.
Cured meats are my love language.
All right, technology, iPhone or Android?
Oh, iPhone all day.
Smart home or old school simplicity?
I'm a hybrid between both, but I'll go more smart home.
Okay, GIFs or emojis?
Oh, I like GIFs.
Okay, streaming music or vinyl?
Streaming.
Virtual meetings or in person?
Oh, neither. I hate meetings, but in person.
Okay, same. So you have children, you have
Yes.
a family, you're a balance. You said you had 3 startups, and in the beginning you said you did lawn care, podcasting, now bourbon.
Yep.
And so how is this, first of all, how many children do you have? What is the work-life balance like?
Yeah, so I have twins that are 10 years old. I have boy-girl twins. Work-life balance is challenging. My great wife's always challenging me to because my natural tendency is to always work.
Yeah.
Because as you know, as a business owner, it's like it's a living thing that you constantly have to feed and take care of, and there's so many things being thrown at you all the time, and so it's really hard for me to shut off the monkey brain in my mind. It's like I'm not a good sleeper. Have ideas running through. Sometimes it's really hard if somebody's talking to me to focus because I'm thinking about, oh, what about that blender? Did I file that paperwork or did I call this person? But I have my wife's great. She's very supportive of the business, but she's constantly reminding me that these kids are only with us for so long. And so I have a great time. I help them coach like in sports and sports life. So it really helps create that balance. My wife loves to travel. I do too. So we do plan a lot of vacations where we can just have like 7 or 10 days away as a family. I can still do work while I'm away, but not being here at the office or the warehouse or at my house. I'm distracted by being wherever we're at. And so it's a work in progress, the work-life balance thing. I don't think you're always people are like, how do you figure that out? And there's going to be times where you have seasons of where I just got to be all in here. Mm-hmm. And then same with your family. Like there's times where I got to be all in there. And so it kind of ebbs and flows depending on what the business needs and what the family needs.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I get that question a lot because I'm a woman, so I probably get it more than you do. And I get that question of how do you do it all? I don't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no, but you can't. Anybody who's told you that they have it all, they do it all, and they could be a great parent and a great business owner is lying to you.
Totally.
Because there's times in your life where you have to be a really great parent, and there's times where you have to be a subpar parent and a really great business owner, and it ebbs and flows, and you just can't be everything for everyone all the time.
Yeah, and too, the hard part is dealing with like the guilt of either part when you're focused on the family and the business, you're like, well, I should be over there, and then the same vice versa, you're like, I should be focused on the family, and so it's dealing with the guilt of either one and not being able to allocate that you want to, but like I said, there's a time and place where both get their undivided attention. I
found as a business owner that the most important part is the people that work for you or with you
absolutely.
To make things happen, and then being able to trust them and have them be able to execute. So how has that been for you, finding the right people and bringing them in? Obviously, you have different types of employees because you have the people who work at the bar and the people who work with the branding. How has that been for you, and has it been a learning experience?
Yeah, it's been great. I'm not giving, because he's not here today, couldn't make my partner, Kenny Coleman, with the brand. He comes from a tech background, very corporate, very structured, a lot of training, and he's very like process oriented. And so he's been absolutely instrumental in like bringing on people, getting them trained in the right, putting them in the right boxes. What's their talents? What are they strong at? How can they improve? How are we all aligning, rowing in the same direction? Because it's right. It's like the bar needs different people. It needs a different energy. It needs different resources for that to work. And then, but on the process side, like the warehouse, fulfillment, blending, bottling, all that type stuff requires different things. But we all need them, everybody swimming and rowing in the right direction. And so Kenny is awesome at doing that. I'm more of the CEO, high level type of person. So I'm always constantly coming up with ideas. I joke with Kenny, I'm like a goose. I come in, shit, and then fly away. And so, excuse my language, but
no, it's okay.
But it's a great balance that me and Kenny have as a team. And we brought on some incredible team members. We try to hire only A players, best of the best at their craft, and people that want to grow, want to have an opportunity with a smaller brand that they might not get with a big corporate brand. And so we've been fortunate to have an absolutely incredible team. And the hard part is, getting everyone, as you know, the personalities and this and that. But as long as everybody's rowing in the same direction, everything's all good.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the human part of business has been definitely the biggest learning experience.
Totally. Because you have so many great people, but they come from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different ways of thinking, which are all positive things, but sometimes they don't clash with this person or that person. And so you're like, all right, you sometimes become a psychologist almost. And so
like their therapist.
100%.
And you're solving their problems.
And sometimes they're my therapist, it's like
a lot of times too.
Yeah. Cause I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was joking before we get here and I was telling Kim, I was like, why is every day I feel like it's a race and we get further behind, you know? And it's like, and having those team members there, like, I got it, you're good, this and that, it goes a long way.
Okay. So to wrap it up here, if you were to give somebody, where do people go if they wanted to try this today? Obviously, it's different with what state you're in. But if you wanted to try it today, how would they get the information on where to get it?
Yeah, sure. So on our website, pursuitspirits.com, we have a store locator. So you can pop in your zip code and it'll pump out. You can put within 5 miles, 10 miles, 15, 100. It'll pop those out. We're only distributed in 10 states currently. We are expanding 5 more states next year. And you can see those on our website. I could spout them out. But here in Kentucky, we have a great distributing partner, Heidelberg, but we are in Liquor Barns, Evergreens, Kroger's, Total Wine, and a lot of independent stores. So we have a good presence in Kentucky, so you can ask your local retailer. If not, ask them to bring in Pursuit. But a lot of the retailers here in Kentucky do carry our products, specifically in Louisville too.
Okay, and so what would somebody like me? If I wanted to go to a bar really and say, taste some bourbon with somebody who is an expert, what's one line I could say after I tasted the bourbon that would make me sound like I knew what I was talking about?
Well, I'll tell you one line you shouldn't say. Don't ever say, that's smooth, because that irritates whiskey fans or whiskey critic or people that are into whiskey, because smooth is kind of boring. But I would just be like, wow, that is super fruity, or that one's super oaky, or that one's got a ton of caramel or vanilla, brown sugar. Using words like that, they'd be like, okay, this girl knows what she's doing.
Okay,
but if you go, oh, that's smooth, they're going to roll their eyes and be like, yeah, whatever. That's what everybody else says.
So oaky, fruity, caramel. There you go, ladies. That's our tip of the day when you want to sound like you're talking about when drinking bourbon. And I'm very excited about the soon-to-be magnetic field version of Pursuit that will come out. United Bourbon and Magnetic Fields. That could be something in the future. So check out their website, because when it does come out, we'll put it there first.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining me today.
Oh, of course. Happy to come on. This is awesome. You got a great team here. Love the setup. And really excited about the results that we got from that. That was fun.
It's something new. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.